Ladies and gentlemen, behind me is the brand new Nissan Leaf Plus. Now, Nissan says this Leaf will get 226 miles of range. And I recall back in 2010 when I drove the first Leaf, it got about 60 miles. Let's face it, that wasn't enough. So the question we're going to answer is this enough range to actually make this Leaf break into the mainstream? And coming up in this review, we're going to get behind the wheel, take it for a ride, see how much room there is. We're going to find out if this is a car that can in fact compete with both the Chevy Bolt and maybe even the Tesla Model 3. And that is coming up right now on the Fast Lane Car. Now, style-wise, this Leaf looks just like a regular Leaf. And keep in mind that there are two versions of the Leaf now. There's a regular Leaf and there's this one, the Plus. And the biggest difference between the regular one and the Plus is the fact that this has a 62 kilowatt battery versus the regular Leaf's 40 kilowatt battery, which also means that you get a range of about 226 miles versus 150 miles. And the way you can tell the Plus is, well, quite simply, this little blue stripe along the bottom of the spoiler. This Plus also has a little bit more powerful of an electric motor. Nissan says 0 to 60 in 7 seconds versus 8 seconds for the normal Leaf. Now, in terms of how else it drives like you would expect a small compact crossover to drive, and that is the steering is light. The brake feel is regenerative, and then there's a little button here that I can hit called the E-pedal button. So now I've got the E-pedal button, and I think that'll allow me to actually drive without ever touching the brake. It just puts in a lot more regenerative braking. So let's try that. We've got the E-pedal engaged now. Not quite the same acceleration, and then a lot more regeneration. And that's the other fun thing about electric cars. You can actually play a bit of a video game-like experience when you're driving down the road and see just how much power you can regen back into the battery. Let's talk numbers, guys. Worldwide, Nissan has sold about 380,000 Leafs since 2010. And about 130,000 of those have been sold right here in America. It's actually built in 3 countries, including in America. So this is an American vehicle, even though it is built by Nissan. Now, one of the things I think that has kept the Leaf from becoming more popular is the kind of car it is. It's basically a small, compact, crossover-ish vehicle. And if you're sitting in the front like I am, and you're relatively tall, it's comfortable, there's a lot of room. It's very modern, plenty of headroom, but when you get in the back, let me show you. Now I'm going to be sitting behind myself. This is where this kind of European-sized car doesn't quite work so well in America, because check this out. I barely have, well, I don't have enough legroom. If you look over here, I don't have enough headroom, and you could probably get 2 of me in here, but good God, it would be very hard to get 3 of me back here. Now, in the back, you do have a hatchback, which is very useful, and those seats do fold up. But in general, for an American XL size consumer, this is kind of a European mid-size car, and I think that's one of the issues with the Leaf. It's a world production car, and it's just a little bit too small for America. Let's get a little bit of EV history from my perspective. First, there was a Tesla Roadster, and that car, of course, was and sold around the world. The first car to be sold around the world as a pure EV is, of course, this, the Nissan Leaf. So you would think it would have the first mover advantage. After the Leaf, then of course came other California compliance cars that were mainly sold in California that were EVs. Then of course the Model S, then the Chevy Bolt, which directly competes with this, and of course the Model 3. And so now we're seeing a lot more electric cars, and the question I keep asking myself is, why doesn't this car sell more? Sure, it sold 380,000 units around the world, 130,000 units in America, but being first means a lot. And perhaps it also has to do with the fact that finally after what, 9 years, we have a car that will go over 200 miles on a charge. And I think that 200 number is the key, because you need to go at least 200 miles to get rid of range anxiety for most people. One of the things I really like about the Leaf is this kind of suede insert with this blue piping in the seat. It gives it a feeling of a little bit more elegance, a little bit more upscale. And I suspect one of the best parts of the Leaf is that, unlike many other Nissan products, there is no CVT, but you do get Nissan's full suite of safety equipment with things like blind spot monitoring, autonomous braking, and of course, check this out, adaptive cruise control. Now, one of the cool things about this new display is that it's touch sensitive, so not only can you use it like you would a phone, basically touch the icon, but you can also then, for instance, go to the map and you can pinch to zoom, just like on Google Maps, which is much more intuitive. And by the way, this version gets both Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. All right, let's talk recharge time. Now, there are basically two types of fast DC charging, 50 kilowatt hours and 100 kilowatt hours, and this Plus will do both. At 50 kilowatts, which is a common one that you'll find in most charging stations, it'll take an hour to get 80% charge. At 100 kilowatts, which is very rare, it'll take you 45 minutes. Now, if you plug this into, let's say, a 240 volt charger, which is basically the outlet that your dryer uses, then you can recharge it overnight in 11 and a half hours, which is still a long time. So we're not exactly to gas station speeds, but at some point, if 100 kilowatt hour fast chargers become prevalent around America, this one is ready to serve that need. Now let's talk about one of the things that this Leaf doesn't have, and that is basically liquid cooling for the battery. And that in the past has hurt Nissan, because in places like Arizona, where it gets really hot, the battery suffered because it wasn't actually climate controlled. Many of its competitors actually liquid cool the batteries to make sure that they're operating in their optimal range. Nissan says that they're using the chemistry of the battery to actually keep it cool, and we shall see. It's a little bit more expensive to liquid cool the battery in both money and energy, but in the long run it tends to be a little bit more efficient. I think that's why the competitors are going with it. But Nissan has stuck to their non-climate controlled battery, saying that it works for them, so we shall see. And unlike Tesla, Nissan has only sold about 130,000 EVs in America, and that means if you buy this Leaf, you are still eligible for that $7,500 federal tax credit plus whatever state credit you get as well. The cutoff is 200,000 units, so for the next 70,000 Leafs sold, you're going to get $7,500 back from the federal government, and that, in my book, is a really good thing. The other great thing about the Plus is it has more horsepower, 214 versus 167 compared to the regular Leaf, which is about 46% more. And that is definitely something you can not only feel, but you can appreciate. So you get more range, you get more power, and you get more car by going with the Plus. Now you may be wondering, how much does this bad boy cost? And the answer is, I can't tell you, because Nissan has yet to release those numbers. But I can tell you that the regular Leaf starts at about $30,000 and goes up to about $35,000 when you get the one with all the bells and whistles. Now Nissan says that this will be competitive with the competition, so that means the Bolt. So you're probably looking a few $1,000s over that $30,000 to $35,000 range for the regular Nissan Leaf. But as soon as we know exact pricing, we will post it to tflcar.com, so be sure to check that out. So I started this review by asking a simple question. Is this the Leaf that will make Nissan finally competitive in the mainstream for electric vehicles? And the answer is probably no. It's just a little too small. But it certainly is the Leaf that Nissan probably should have came out with 3 years ago to compete directly with the Bolt. However, does this Nissan Leaf represent the beginning of general EV acceptance in America? And I suspect yes, because it's got the three things that you need. It's got the longer range, and I think you have to have at least 200 miles of range. It's got relatively quick recharge times, and I think it's relatively affordable. So let the EV battle begin. Nissan has just fired a pretty substantial shot across the bow of both Chevy and maybe even Tesla. As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fast Lane Car. Check out tflcar.com for more news, and of course, Nissan Leaf reviews. See you guys next time. Ciao.